What's up, guys? Right now we're going to be solving some problems using both decimals and fractions. So I'm going to show you two ways to do this. One of them is going to be working with purely decimals, and one of them is going to be working with purely fractions. And then we're going to discuss at the end which way was better and maybe certain problems that we will have to use a certain method for. Alrighty, so let's start off with 37.8 plus 40 and 1/2. So if we want to work with decimals in this, that means we're going to have to convert our 40 and 1/2 into a decimal. We're going to have to convert 40 and 1/2 into a decimal right here. Okay, so let's see where we start with that. So we're going to have a 37.8, and we want to add to that 40 and 1/2. So I'm going to zoom out here for a second. What we need to find is how many times we can divide 5 into 1, or basically we need to make 1/5 a decimal. So remember, you guys, we use long division here, right? So I'm going to divide 5 into 1.0. Now, how many times does 5 go into 1.0? Well, we'd go in 2 times, and we'd keep our decimal here. So that means 1/5 is equal to 0.2. All right, let's go back to our problem. So this is going to be 40.2. Remember, because 1/5 is equal to 0.2. All right, so now 37.8 plus 40.5. Well, let's just line these up right here. All right, so 8 plus 2, that would give us a 0 down here. We'll carry our 1, make that an 8, because 7 plus 1 is 8, and then 4 plus 3 would be 7. So this would equal 78. So our value right here is 78.0. Awesome. Alrighty, so now let's solve this using only fractions, all right? So if we start with a 37.8 plus 40 and 1/2, we're going to need to convert this 37.8 into a fraction. So the best way to do that is let's remember what this says. This is 37 and 8/10, right? So how can we write 8/10? Well, we can write 37.8 is equal to 37 and 8/10, right? Because all we're saying is it has 8/10. So for example, if this was 37.85, this would be 37 and 85/100ths. We could write this as 37 and 85 over 100. So whenever we're converting from a decimal to a fraction, we really just want to say out loud what those decimal places are and then write that down. All right, so let's get back to our problem here. So 37.8 plus 40 and 1/2. So we can rewrite this as 37 and 8/10 plus 40 and 1/5. All right, now let's separate out our integers and our fractions. So we're going to have a 37 plus 40, and then a plus 8 over 10 plus 1 over 5. Okay, so what's 37 plus 40? Well, 37 plus 40 is going to be equal to 47, or no, it's not. It's going to be equal to 77, and then 8/10 plus 1/5. We're going to change this to 2/10, and then we add 8/10 plus 2/10. We're going to get 10/10. And hopefully you guys know that 10/10 would be equal to 1. So now I have a 77 plus 1, which should be equal to 78. Awesome. So do you guys see here how both of our answers are the same, even though we solved using different methods? That's because our values never changed in either problem. So we'll always be able to use either method interchangeably. So what are some situations that we would rather use a decimal equation than a fraction equation? Well, I would normally use a a decimal equation almost all of the time. I would prefer to change fractions to decimals because they're always going to be work, and we're going to be able to line our problems up like we do right here. And that's going to help us to working through in a linear pattern. Now, when might we use a fractional method as opposed to a decimal method? Well, we might use a fractional method if our fraction is a repeating decimal. So for example, if I have a 1/3, and we're trying to convert that into a decimal, we're going to divide 3 into 1 however many times, but we're just going to keep getting a 3 right here, and it's going to go on forever and ever and ever. Because we'll get a 9 with the remainder 1, a 10 with the remainder 1, a 10, and so on and so forth. That'll go on forever. So whenever we have a repeating fraction, we're going to want to make sure that we keep it in fractional form and we convert our decimal into a fraction so we can work with it. Alrighty, guys, hope those two solved examples were able to help you out on working through with some decimals and some fraction and some rational.